Okay, so in this lesson, we're just looking at chapter 9. So these are the factors that impact on human health. So if we think about health, what is health? So health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being. So sometimes we might just focus on the physical, but it also includes mental and social well-being. So health includes physical health. So for example, that's like dealing with the body, exercising and eating well. And then mental health, as in looking after your mental health, like stress, depression, things like that, can play a factor in relation to human health. So this is your definition of what health is, and then this is what health includes. Okay, so some of the factors affecting human health. So human health is affected by inherited factors. So this is really like your genes. So for example, the genes that you inherit from your mum and from your dad. Environmental factors. So if we think about like the environment that you grow up in, um, both like the family environment, but then also as well the actual physical environment, and then personal behavior then as well. So the things that you decide to do, the things that you learn, the habits that you pick up, for example. So if we have a look at this, so if we think about inherited, when we talk about the inherited factors that relate to health, this relates to things like your genes. So your genes, for example, your DNA, you receive half of your makeup from your mum, half your makeup from your dad. Your gender, okay, whether you're male or female, and then your age then as well play a big factor in relation to health. So for example, the older you get, your body starts to kind of wear out, and that has an impact on your health. So these are factors that affect your health. So your gene, your the genes that you got from your parents, your gender, whether you're male or female, and your age. And they're the inherited factors. Then, if we think about some personal behaviors, so these are things that you have control over and that you can decide whether you want to take up, for example, bad habits or not. So, what are the personal behaviors? So, what you eat, so your diet. If you decide to smoke, so again, smoking is really bad for your health. Alcohol consumption, so the amount of alcohol you decide to drink. Drugs, okay, so drugs, if they're used recreationally, again, can have an impact on your your health. Exercise, so whether you exercise or you don't, this has a huge impact on your health. Your hygiene, so for example, so hygiene again is very important. Um, Accidents, okay, so if you engage in risky behavior, for example, you could easily get hurt, and you medical support then as well. So this is kind of like your access to healthcare. So if you live in a country where healthcare is free, for example, you might be more encouraged to go and look after your mental health or look after your health. Whereas if it's really expensive, like for example in the US, sometimes that can be a barrier to people's personal health. And then if we take the environmental factors, so just the environment that you grow up in. So if you receive an education and you learn about the importance of diet and the negative effects of alcohol and smoking and drugs, for example, that can have a huge impact on your health. The climate that you're in, so the climate that we live in, can have a huge impact on your health. Like if you live in a climate where you're very exposed to the sun on a constant basis, there can be a risk of skin cancer, for example. Your occupation, so again, depending on the type of work that you do, some work is very stressful. It can cause mental health problems. Other work can be very dangerous, like if you worked in the military, for example, and that can have an impact on your health. Disease causing organisms. So if we think like very topical one now is the coronavirus, and then pollution then as well. So for example, if pollutants are getting into the water or are in the environment, that can cause major problems. So if we take, for example, Chernobyl, the nuclear power plant that melted down, that spewed up nuclear waste into the air, radioactive substances, so that like obviously polluted the air. So if you take Chernobyl, for example, where the nuclear power plant melted down, that place is completely polluted. So therefore, it has a huge detrimental effect on people's health in neighbouring towns. So these are the factors affecting human health. Now, when we take then like some physical things that can impact on your health, there are certain disorders that you can get. So you have what are called gene disorders. So these are like your genes are basically they're molecules that are in your body and they are important for expressing proteins in your body. So inherited factors are controlled by genes. So your eye color, eye color, for example, would be there's a gene for your eye color, and that's something that you inherited from your parents. Now there are disorders that are associated with some kind of disorder in relation to the genes, and that causes problems. So if we take there's some of these that are like just one single gene that's impacted, but then there are others that are impacted by many genes. So it's not just one, they're a more complex disease. So if we take single gene disorders, they include like cystic fibrosis. So cystic fibrosis is where you get this kind of sticky mucus that clogs up the lungs. So that's a genetic disorder, and it has just one gene that's just slightly different, and as a result of that, we get cystic fibrosis. Sickle cell anemia, where wrongly shaped red blood cells are formed. So the red blood cells can't bind oxygen as well as a normal, well-shaped red blood cell, and as a result, it causes an impact on the person's health. Colic disease, where the body cannot process gluten from wheat. So this is like a major problem, and again, it's caused by the person's genes. And then you have this hemophilia, which again, it's a genetic condition. It's just a single gene, and what that does is it inhibits the ability of the body to, or the blood to clot. So if that person gets a cut, that can be serious. It won't clot, and they'll continue losing blood through that cut. So then you have other gene disorders that involve many different genes. So you have multi-gene disorders, and they include like cancer, for example, it's a range of disorders where cells lose control of the rate of cell division and the number of times they can reproduce. So again, it's not just one gene that contributes to this particular gene disorder, but it's multiple genes. There's certain heart disease. So for example, you can have genes where the valves where the arteries that bring blood to the heart, for example, they can be prone to fat depositing on them, and as a result, they get blocked up, and it makes you more prone to heart disease. Alzheimer's disease, so that's neurological. It affects the brain cells. Diabetes, so it's the ability of the body to produce insulin. Again, that can be like it's not just one gene, it's many genes. And then also as well, obesity has been linked to that as well. And then we have Down syndrome, which is caused by an extra chromosome in each body cell as well. So again, these are conditions that relate to the genetic makeup of a person, and they impact on the person's health. So genes we can't really control our genes. We get the genes that we get, but lifestyle is definitely something that we can have a direct influence on. So the main lifestyle or personal behavior factors affecting our health are like our diet. So for example, if you eat a well-balanced diet, that's low in carbohydrates, it's low in saturated fats, and that's going to be better than if you're eating a diet that's high in sugar, high in saturated fats. So smoking, it's absolutely detrimental to the health. It destroys your lungs. It costs lots of money, and again, it's not great in relation to your health. The amount of exercise that you take is very, very important. When you exercise, you strengthen your heart and you strengthen your muscles, and it just keeps your body healthy. So drinking drugs, so recreational drugs, for example, and drinking alcohol can massively damage your mental health, but also damage your physical health as well. Sleep, again, students, when you're studying, sleep is very, very important, and it can have a huge impact on your health. And then your work-life balance as well. So the amount of schoolwork that you're doing versus the amount of time that you're kind of using doing these other things like exercise or eating healthy, for example. So these are some of the lifestyle factors that impact on your health. So your diet, so a balanced diet includes the correct amounts of the following food types. So again, diet is very, very important. So you have your major food groups. So you have carbohydrates, fats, proteins, vitamins, minerals, and water. So carbohydrates, they're the sugars. So there's things like fruits, sugars, potatoes, bread, and cereal. Fats are things like butter, cream, milk, oil, and fried foods. Proteins are like meat, fish, eggs, nuts, peas, and beans. Vitamins, then there's many different types of vitamins, so like vitamin C, and then you have your minerals then, and again there's many different types of minerals, and your body is mainly water, so again water is very important in relation to your diet. And what we can do is we can take these major food groups and we can put them on a pyramid like this. Okay, so the amount of each food type that we should eat is shown in the food pyramid below. So just have a look at this. So maybe just pause the video and have a look. And the way to kind of think about this is at the top or at the pinnacle are the foods that you should eat like rarely. Okay, so if you have a look at here, it's processed, processed foods. So fats, oils, cake, biscuits, crisps, and sugar. So again, these are all like kind of, you know, they would be foods that you'd eat, but just that you try and cut down and eat rarely. And then if you go to the polar opposite of that, then we have, let's say, so these would be the kind of staple things of your diet. So things like cereals, breads, and potatoes. So they recommend 6 servings a day. Uh, Fruit and vegetables. So again, they recommend 5 servings a day. Milk, cheese, and yogurt. So again, you're looking at 3 servings a day, and then meat and fish. You're looking at 2 servings a day. And this is what they recommend for a balanced diet. This is the way that you're kind of eating. That these foods up at the top are eaten rarely, and also as well, like what's really important for a healthy diet is that you're drinking plenty of water, and you're drinking water regularly. So when we're looking at food, so maybe if you want to have a look, maybe just get some food, some different items there that are in the house around you. So what we have here, okay, so we have like different energy values. So when you look on a container, for example, it will contain this information here. So these are just some examples. So different foods have different energy values, and carbohydrates and proteins have the same energy values. Fats have about twice the energy value of carbohydrates and proteins, and our bodies do not normally use proteins for energy. So our body needs energy in order to carry out all the functions that it carries out in the body. So we need to give it the right fuel in order for it to be able to do that. So if we have a look here, we can see that there's different energy values. So if we take jam, for example, its energy value is 1,127 kilojoules. If we take soup, okay, it's a little less, it's 205. Beans is 326. And then biscuits, like see the energy level, the energy value here on biscuits is very, very high. So it's 1616 kilojoules. Now, the important thing to kind of remember is that your body needs a certain amount. It needs a certain amount of calories every day in order to burn, in order to produce the energy it needs to keep it healthy. But certain foods are like really easy to eat, and your body any energy that your body doesn't use, it's going to store that energy as fat. So if we take like biscuits, for example, really easy to eat, you could easily start eating. So this is like typical value per 100 gram. So you can see that like you can easily clock up, let's say, loads of additional calories by eating like things like biscuits that are very easy to eat, and even jams as well that are kind of sugary and are easy to eat. And any of that excess energy that your body doesn't use up, if you're not exercising, your body's going to turn that into fat. So our bodies basically, they use normally carbohydrates for energy. They don't normally burn proteins for energy. If you are like extreme exercising, and you're not getting the right amount of calories in, what will happen is your body will start to break down proteins to produce energy. So like in survival situations, for example. So this kind of rarely happens. So you can see from this that it's very easy to overeat, as in like we can eat more than our body actually needs. So what are the risks of overeating? If we're eating too much food, it may result in overweight. It can result in severe overweight or obesity. It can increase your risks of heart disease. If you're carrying extra weight, your heart has to work extra hard in order to get the blood around, and that can cause high blood pressure. Also as well, if your body's saturated with sugar all the time, uh, your body can find it hard insulin to keep up, so you can develop what's called diabetes. It can result in difficulties in breathing, and also even some forms of cancer as well can be linked to it. Now, equally as well, if you don't eat enough, so your body needs proteins, fats, lipids, carbohydrates. Like your body, that's what makes up your body. So you do need to get enough of these. So what's the risks of under eating? So eating too little food may result in weight loss. Okay, mood swings. So again, your mood can be directly linked to like the food that you're eating if you're not getting enough carbohydrates. Depression, heart and circulatory problems. So if your heart can't repair itself, it doesn't have the raw materials that you get in from your food, it can cause problems. Low blood pressure, uh, reproductive problems, and then also like weak bones as well. If you're not getting enough calcium into your bones, it can weaken your bones, and that can make your bones more prone to suffering breaks. So these are some of the risks that are associated with under eating. So that's diet. So then if we think about then some of the other lifestyle factors like smoking, for example. So smoking is something that you can decide you want to do. So some of the risks of smoking. So smoking is bad for our health because it stimulates more mucus and causes smoker's cough. Okay, so it can cause mucus in the lungs, and that can cause the person to cough, which is associated with this thing that we call smoker's cough. Increases lung infection. So with all this extra mucus in the lung, that can increase the amount of bacteria that get in there, and it can cause infection. Increases the risk of lung and other cancers, so it can create cancers of the lung. Increases the risk of heart attack. So again, it can cause the arteries and that to get clogged up, and it can affect the development of the baby in the womb if a pregnant mother smokes as well. So again, like smoking is just bad. It just generates loads of these health problems in relation to your lungs. So if we have a look here, so kind of picture says 1,000 words. So if we look here, we can see that this here is a smoker's lung. We can see the amount of damage that's done to it, whereas this here is a healthy lung, and we can see that it's much healthier than this damaged lung here. So exercise then, so exercise is good for our health because it prevents us gaining weight. So we're animals that are designed to move. So therefore, it prevents us gaining weight. It increases weight loss. It reduces the risk of stroke, heart attacks, diabetes, depression, arthritis, and some cancers. And it increases our energy levels as it improves the workings of our body parts. And it also improves our mood by stimulating brain chemicals that trigger happiness. So we get endorphins when we're running, for example, and it improves our sleep patterns as well. So exercise is brilliant in relation to your health. So another factor that impacts on your health is alcohol. So alcohol causes the following problems. So again, it slows down the working of our brain, so it acts as a depressant. It is toxic, and it makes us feel sick and lose coordination. It changes our mood. For some, it makes them talkative. For others, they become angry and aggressive. So it can completely change your personality. It can cause alcohol poisoning. So if you consume too much alcohol, your body can't process it. So that can cause vomiting, sleepiness, unconsciousness, and it can even, in worst cases, result in death. And it's also addictive as well. So you can become dependent on alcohol and become what's known as an alcoholic, where you need alcohol every day to survive. And it can be very, very addictive. So these are all the risks that are associated with drinking alcohol. So drugs then, so drugs can have different effects depending on the type of drug that it is. So drugs, for example, depending on the type, the amount of the drug taken, the size of the person, so your size actually impacts on like the effect that the drug can have, how often the drug is taken, and how fast the drug reaches the brain, and what other drugs, substances, or food are taken as well. So we've all different types of recreational drugs, and depending on these are some of the factors then that can cause the effects of drugs. So the next thing then that we're look at then is sleep. So sleep is really important. So what does sleep actually do? So it improves our concentration, It makes us more alert. It increases our energy levels and allows our body to recover and heal. Okay, so sleep is like it's like a natural balm that that improves our concentration and does these things for us. So young people need more sleep than older people, so especially when they're developing and the brain is growing. Young people need about 8 hours sleep each night, so it's very important that you get that amount of sleep. And work-life balance means we must allow time for relaxation and play, and we should be aware of what makes us happy and allow time for this each day as well. So this is really, really important. So sleep, again, lack of sleep can cause major problems. So then some of the other factors then that can impact on our health. So these microorganisms, and as we know now with coronavirus is a microorganism, it can have a serious impact on our health. So what are microorganisms? So we can see here some bacteria that's grown on the head of a pin. So microorganisms are small living things. They are only visible using a microscope. So you need a microscope to actually see them. They're found everywhere, so they're all on everything, and they're made up of like viruses. So the coronavirus, you have bacteria, and then you also have fungi as well. So fungi would be things like mushrooms and other more hardier kind of microorganisms. So microorganisms are everywhere, and they have a huge impact on our health. So we have microorganisms in our gut, for example, that help us to get certain minerals and vitamins out of our food. So they're really important. They keep us safe. And then there are other microorganisms that cause infection and reduce our health. So some of the benefits of microorganisms. Microorganisms that benefit us include decomposers. So these are ones which release minerals back into the soil. So we kind of looked at some decomposers when we're doing our ecology study. Food production. So some microorganisms are used in making bread, alcohol, and many other foods. So biotechnology. So they can actually use bacteria like microorganisms used to make drugs, flavorings, colorings, and vitamins. And then you have water treatment, so they can be used to break down waste, which helps to purify water. So microorganisms can be used to do that. Bacteria in our digestive system, they make vitamins that prevent the growth of nasty bacteria and help break down our foods as well. So the bacteria in our gut help us to do that. And however, microorganisms also cause disease as well. So like, for example, the coronavirus. So if we take viruses, for example, they can be quite nasty. So viruses are the smallest living things, and they cause diseases such as measles, mumps, chickenpox, polio. The cold and flu are viruses, cold sores, and what's called AIDS, which is an acquired immune disorder syndrome. Okay, so it's a bacteria that attacks the white blood cells in the body. So in recent years, new viruses such as Ebola, causing internal and external bleeding, the Zika virus causing reduced brain size in babies, and they have evolved. And our bodies fight off most viruses when our white blood cells produce chemicals called antibodies. So this is like our immune system. It can fight off some of these naturally. And again, also I would include in there the coronavirus. So these are viruses, microorganisms, and they have a major impact on our health. So bacteria are larger than viruses, and bacterial diseases include tinnitus, which is lockjaw. So if you stand on a rusty nail, for example, tuberculosis, which is TB, pneumonia, sore throats, tooth and gum decay, food poisoning, cholera, and anthrax is a deadly bacteria as well. So antibiotics are chemicals. So they're antibiotics, so they're against bacteria. They're chemicals that are actually made by bacteria and fungi, which kill or prevent the reproduction of bacteria. So bacteria compete with other bacteria, and what they do is they make a poison that kills off their competitors, but humans can use that chemical, that poison that the bacteria produces, in order to fight infection, and that's the basis of antibiotics. And then bacteria, so bacteria are larger, sorry, so that's bacteria. So then we have fungi. Okay, so fungi are generally larger than most bacteria, and fungi cause diseases such as athlete's foot. So we can see this here, which it's a condition caused by a fungi, and then we have this other condition that's called ringworm as well. So again, you can notice these, like they're kind of like infections that happen on the skin, and you can notice them. So this here is an example of athlete's foot, and again, it has an impact on human health, and these are what are called fungi. So with these microorganisms, how do we help to reduce the risk of infection? So we can reduce the risk of infection. We can reduce the risk of infection by microorganisms if we wash our hands in soap and warm water frequently. So good hygiene. Get all our immunization or vaccines. These cause us to produce antibodies against the microorganisms so that we have long-term protection. Okay, so any vaccines that you need to get, like we need to get the vaccine against the coronavirus to keep us safe from it. Food, so again, food that's not cooked properly can be infected with bacteria and cause things like food poisoning. So again, cook your food properly. So high temperatures kill most microorganisms. And eat well, take regular exercise, and have enough sleep as well. And that will ensure that you have a healthy immune system, and it'll keep you safe, and it'll keep your immune system healthy and your health in good condition. Okay, so they are the factors that impact on human health, and they're the factors that like keep us healthy. So again, a very important topic in relation to keeping us healthy. Okay, so thank you for listening.